fatality of some kind. Again, those are things that we're going to find out more concretely, obviously, when the crime scene the crime scene is up and running, and the Secret Service is able to get a lot more information out about exactly the nature of this incident. But yes, what you're detecting is obviously that the law enforcement believes that someone fired a shot at the former president. Now, what kind of shot that is, again, is something that we have to hear more directly from law enforcement in the coming hours.
All right, everybody stand by. I want to play the video one more time. Let's watch what unfolded, and it starts with the former president, Donald Trump, speaking to this crowd in Butler, Pennsylvania, and then all of a sudden we hear what we now can confirm gunshots, and then he raises his right hand to his face, and you see some blood coming out, and he goes down. But let's watch the video an additional time right now, especially for viewers who might just be tuning in.
No, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Shooters down.
Let me get my shoes. I got you. Let me get my shoes. Hold on, your head. So we gotta move to the Watch out.
Jonathan Wackrow, former Secret Service agent. Clearly, those Secret Service agents who were there on the scene had trained for this, were well prepared, and they managed to get the former president of the United States into that vehicle safely. We are told now by multiple law enforcement sources that the shooter, and that's the word they're using, the shooter involved in this incident at the Trump rally in Pennsylvania is no longer an immediate threat. But go ahead and give us the latest information you're getting.
Yeah, Wolf, listen, what we, heard Evan talk about was, that the statement was that the threat has been neutralized, or the shooter has been neutralized. That actually now confirms what we heard the agents on the stage in that audio just a moment ago actually say. Now, I want to just,
they said, just interrupt you for a second. We heard those Secret Service agents say, "Shooter is down. Shooter is down." Is that what you heard?
So that's actually really important, Wolf. And the reason being is because as the agents came in and pushed the former president down, and they basically they tackle him down, and they put themselves in between the former president and the threat. They're not going to move that former president or any protectee if there's active rounds coming in. So when we heard that word, the shooter is down, was really important. That was a key moment for the detail leader to then make the call, we're going to move to the next terrain feature. We're going to take the protectee, in this case, former President Trump. We are going to remove him from this stage, and we're going to move him, the immediate action is to move him to the armored limo, again, getting into a safe location as quickly as possible. Now, the question remains, who addressed that threat? We know that there was a shooter, so who neutralized that threat? Was it a member of the Secret Service? Was it a member of law enforcement? And I think it's important to understand that when you think about the site dynamics here and the way...
Yeah, exactly, Leo. Just like Kennedy.
The protective
And just like Kennedy is the
actually
assassin's
applied
taken out.
To this type of event, it's actually concentric rings of protection.
The show just got interesting, huh?
In looking at the
Trump's
scene,
street cred after this, after today, is probably plus 100,000%.
Out in terms of law enforcement, special agents, private security firms, all of that, combined create the security.
I don't think it was staged.
So
I don't think so, Leo.
Right now is
I think they really tried to take him out,
In the moment, and then
all right, Jonathan, hold on for a moment. Hold on for a moment. The Associated Press is now reporting that, according to the local DA, the suspected gunman and at least one rally attendee.
No, I don't think so.
Very disturbing information. The local prosecutor says the suspected gunman and at least one attendee are dead. That's a significant development in and of itself. Right there, the shooter, the suspected gunman, as they're calling him, and one attendee is dead in this incident. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I mean, if I had to pick an antichrist, I would probably pick Hillary Clinton over Trump.
In the tragedy that just occurred, right? We have a member who attended this rally who is now dead. It talks about the dynamic.
Who does? Who has so much power
that these threats present? But again, law enforcement trains for this. And Wolf, what I was saying just before that.
Yeah, he's definitely got power now. I mean,
we did hear
his street cred with everybody now after this is just off the wall. There's no doubt he's going to be elected now.
So to me,
they could throw anybody at
just listening to that audio
shows
that there was a
Adam
shooter, and then there was
from
some
the Democratic side, and he's just going to blow him
and now
away.
we heard from Evan that the shooter was neutralized. We heard from the agents on
But
the stage
it's ironic that the shooter,
was down.
alleged shooter, I should say, has been neutralized.
Part of the shift,
Twitter was saying that the shooter was dead, that there was videos of him being dragged out of the area.
Move the president from the stage to the.
I didn't see any of that though, so I cannot confirm.
And when the appropriate assets were surrounding the former president, to include that tactical team that we're seeing. We're seeing the agents just create that bubble around the president as they're moving him off stage. What you're seeing again is, if you look into the crowd, you're seeing special agents. Everyone has their weapons out. They are scanning for secondary threats. They're ensuring that that wasn't a distraction and that another threat was coming inbound. So you see,
it's just another sign of a collapsing republic.
Awareness.
Political assassinations and assassination attempts.
Even as the president.
That's what happens with banana republics. They end up killing each other,
And great work by all law enforcement, including the Secret Service.
Yeah, and once again, the suspected gunman in this particular case is dead, and at least one rally attendee is dead as well. More information is coming in relatively quickly.
Hi, Carrie. How are you?
Yeah, you see, and Jonathan Wackrow, I just want to get your thought.
Crazy times
hit on the
we
side
live
of his
in.
face, near his neck, near his ear. Trump falls down. I don't think the Secret Service was pushing him down at that point, although they did go down and then eventually lift him up and take him to a vehicle. But it looked like he just went down right away as he raised his right hand towards the side of his face.
I don't know who's down. Apparently somebody was killed.
What type of instructions?
Might have been a bystander. It might have been the shooter.
President, when protection had started, typically when there is a perceived threat, we tell the protectees.
The headline is saying at least one rally attendee dead.
There's a perceived threat is to go down.
How somebody with a weapon could get into an event like this is
I think that in this moment you can see
crazy.
The former president was looking towards
they go through all sorts of
the moment that he felt
17 layers of security to get into these events. That somebody snuck in a weapon is just unbelievable to me. I would think it would be somebody with a high-powered rifle shooting from far away.
Came immediately on top of them. The detail leader would have been doing a rapid assessment to see if there were any secondary wounds, any other type of injury prior to moving the former president. We didn't get to see that because they were down behind that front shield.
They might have blown a piece of his ear off.
but that's what's going on.
Nothing
with the
that a
Secret
little
Service,
plastic
all the
surgery
while
can't fix.
Gaining intelligence and gaining information around what is the situation and ensuring scene safety before the president is moved.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, to make sure they protect the former president of the United States and get him to a safe
it is
location.
crazy, Kerry.
We're now told by his campaign,
You know, hug your
he's
kids
in a
and
medical
tell them you love them.
facility
You know, that's all you can
treatment
do,
for what
really.
just happened. Pamela Brown is with us here in the CNN Newsroom.
Let these events play out.
What are you learning?
That he did confirm one spectator
Yeah,
is
definitely,
dead,
I think,
that
a headshot.
the shooter is dead. A second
Like he
spectator
turned his
is in
head
serious
momentarily
condition.
and it hit his ear.
Former President Trump
You
is
know?
going to be okay. We know from the Trump campaign statement that he's going to be fine. The district attorney
Somebody
confirms
shooting
that
from a
he's going to be
distance,
okay.
too,
He was removed
you know,
from
like
the scene, as we know, from the
1,000
US
yards
Service.
away.
Now, the district attorney did not know,
You know,
if the
almost
the
a mile
shooter,
away.
died through a self-inflicted,
would have to be a super
wound or not.
sniper
We
with
also
a
don't know more details about what
with
kind of shooter this
adjusting
was.
for
I think
wind
we
and all
really
this sort of
careful until we
thing.
find
It's
out
very
more.
difficult
Asked,
to hit
you know,
a target
does the shooter have
from
a
a
gun?
far
Is that what
range.
you're
But
saying?
there
So
are
I can't confirm that right now. I can't
professional
confirm, anything about bullets or anything
military
like that.
people
So I
that
think
can
we need
do
to be
that
really
kind of
careful till we
shot.
get the actual confirmation of what kind of shooter this was.
You know?
But the Butler District Attorney Richard Goldinger is confirming that one spectator
But they're saying they
is
got
dead,
somebody
second
from the
spectator is in
crowd
serious
and
condition, and the shooter is dead. I asked him, how did this person,
they're
this
saying
shooter,
here that
that he did not have details about, by the way,
the security
get
right
the
at the
security,
stage
have
was
access
advised
to,
that
cause an injury
the
to
shooter
former
was down. So the
president there.
it sounds like the
And he
shooter
said,
was there in the
that's
crowd
million-dollar
somewhere.
question right now. That is
I mean,
what
could
we're
it be
all
one
trying to
of
figure out.
the
And we know
security
US
people
Secret Service right now is leading
that
this
was in there
investigation,
that
and that's a big
was like a
question,
double agent or
because we
something? That's
heard,
possible,
we just
I
heard
guess.
earlier, from Wackrow, Jonathan Wackrow. Well, the security is so tight at these campaign events. You have a former president there.
Yeah,
Security
exactly.
is as tight as it gets, and how this happened is just a major question.
Yeah, they got to learn from this incident, because these campaigns are only just beginning, and the current president of the United States is about to go to a whole bunch of rallies as well. And there's got to be heightened security at all these events. There's a Republican convention in Milwaukee this week, and a Democratic convention in Chicago a few weeks later in August. Already they had been planning, even before this incident, major security concerns. Various Department of Homeland Security officials, FBI officials, local law enforcement, U.S. military, and others have been engaged in worrying about what potentially could happen at these two conventions. And now, as a result of this, I'm sure security is going to be expanded even more so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you can imagine security was already going to be tight at the Republican National Convention, the Democratic one. Now, it's going to be that much more. And I think, as you point out, Wolf, this is a learning lesson. This is historic, what has happened here today, where you have, the Republican nominee for president, a former president, Donald Trump, who is injured. You have a shooter that somehow made his or her way into that space enough to injure the former president. You have a spectator who is now dead. And you have another spectator who is in serious condition. This is historic. This is a huge deal, and this is going to be the top focus for the Secret Service to figure out what happened. I'm in touch with the Butler County District Attorney, who, by the way, says he can make it on the show in a little bit. So we look forward to hearing directly from him.
We'd like to speak to him if you can make sure he calls in. If it's even on phone or video, we'd like to get his thoughts and let our viewers know exactly what he knows. It's interesting that they're calling this a suspected gunman, a shooter. So clearly there were shots fired at the former
Kerry,
president of the
that's
United
true.
States. That's why you could see him raising his hand.
People get shot every day, though.
We're watching all this unfold. Pamela, excellent reporting. Thank you
an
very much.
ex-president
Joining
who
us
was
on the
shot
phone right now is Kip Tom.
So it's big news, but I mean,
in Butler, Pennsylvania.
there's people in our towns today, tonight, that will be shot over stupid shit.
Give us your eyewitness account. What can you tell us?
Yes, as you said, I was about 40 feet away to the right of former President Trump, but I saw this gun smoke and I heard the fire immediately, but it was coming from the stands to the left of President Trump, towards the top, because you could see the gun smoke. About that time is when President Trump went down. It seemed like there was maybe 6 or 7 shots, a little bit of a pause, and a person behind me about 15 foot was hit. I'm not so sure he is the one that was killed. But then I thought I heard there was a little bit of a pause, and then I thought there was gunshots that came from behind me at the same elevation as across. Now, it could have been just echoing
Shooter
across
neutralized.
the area where we're all
I
sitting.
think
But
that
the
was
reality is
probably
it really seemed like there was possibly a second shooter.
A second shooter, is that what you suspected? Because we haven't gotten any word of that yet.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm just saying, you know, at first I saw the gun smoke coming from across. I knew right away what to look for. I saw it over there. And then there was a big cloud of dust that appeared, and then the shots stopped. But then additional gunfire occurred, and I thought it was coming from behind me. And people around me were turning around and looking up and behind us, which had been stage right of President Trump.
Because the additional gunfire earlier, we had been told, probably came from law enforcement, either the Secret Service or local law enforcement who were shooting the suspected gunman in this particular case. And now we're told by the Butler County District Attorney Richard Goldinger that the suspected gunman is dead. Another person at the rally is dead, and a second spectator is described as being in serious condition right now. You must have been so scared out of your mind as all of this was unfolding, Kip. Give us your sense.
You know, I've been trained a long time ago to stay calm, and I actually continue to stand up and look for where the gunfire was coming from, and of course was watching over, wanted to see how Trump was reacting and make sure that he recovered and they got him off stage. But the whole audience, I don't think no one knew how to react at the time. It was a big surprise. Some people probably thought it was fireworks to start with. But as people exited, you heard all kinds of talk about, was it just fireworks, or was someone shot, or just, you know, they didn't realize the president had been shot. So,
Kip, you were only about 40 feet away from the former president of the United States. To get into that rally, did you have to go through metal magnetometers?
Yes, everybody went through metal magnetometers, and I understood, you know, they probably had a...
I just had to step away, ladies. I had to check the laundry.
So everybody who walked...
Because life goes on, you know.
...relatively close to the former president went through metal detectors. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
All right, well,
I'm assuming that was a goal. You know, I can't verify that everybody went through, but they were set up to screen everybody.
And do you know how far away the suspected...
What's everybody doing tonight? Hanging out?
I would have said if you went off to the side,
hey, Chad.
you were talking 40, probably 100 foot away, 120 foot away, maybe.
And you think people that far away went through metal detectors too?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they were sitting in the stages to the right and to the left, and then there was, of course, people in behind President Trump sitting behind him as well.
Imagine all the evidence that's being collected. Everybody with the camera nearby recording it. That's all evidence that will be gathered and sorted through.
Killed somebody who was just there.
It's not just one Zabruder guy filming. There's everybody there is filming this.
Service agents shouting out, "Shooter down! Shooter is down! Shooter is down!" So we suspected that that shooter had been shot by local law enforcement or the Secret Service. Or
no, the rally ended. It was about 3 or 4 minutes into the rally when the shots were fired, so it ended.
Of the United States. Any other points you want to make, Kip, before I let you go?
No,
Butler,
actually,
Pennsylvania.
Just a number of the shots came off.
Isn't that where Rachella lives up there somewhere?
So you know, there was a lot going on there, but I'm saying it was after 5, 6, 7 shots, I heard a different caliber gun being fired. So,
or what's her name? Lisa Lindland too. I think lives in the Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh area up there.
They had him identified and was shooting at him.
Yeah, well, Kip, I'm happy you're okay. And a lot of other people are okay. This could have been, God forbid, even a whole lot worse than it already has been reported. Kip Tom, thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate it very much. John Miller is still with us.
God, I hope not.
Law enforcement and intelligence analyst. You want to give us, John, your analysis of what we just heard from this eyewitness?
Sure, and I think what Ambassador Tom is experiencing is what we call the fog of war, which is having been there as the eyewitness and remembering it the way he remembers it. But as we have shown this video a number of times, what you hear is 2, 3 rapid shots before the president goes down. And when I say goes down, people, his agents.
That shot right there is going to be on every newspaper tomorrow.
Puts himself down
with the blood,
and then they go around him. But what you hear immediately after
street
that,
cred
you hear multiple
plus 100,000% after today.
Fire against the shooter. Now the question that keeps coming,
even
up,
people who hated Trump got to say now, you know, this guy's.
How does a shooter get into?
This guy's
close enough to shoot a president.
This guy's trying to be taken out, you know. Yeah, even the kitchen sink.
What we are
Chad, absolutely.
told by my law enforcement sources now is that the shooter was killed outside the perimeter of this event, this fenced-in event.
Who's this guy right here with the fucking clown outfit?
Of a single-story building, and when you look at this
guy right here,
see that it's a giant field.
What the fuck is that?
By these low buildings, they're like one-story buildings.
Guy's dressed like a clown, like a Red Skeleton.
That he fired a couple of shots, and that the counter sniper teams in place, likely for just this purpose, probably returned that fire, because that's where you hear that 6 or 7 shots of a different caliber in rapid succession, and then total quiet. So that, these we are told by law enforcement, and that will be the.
I think Obama's pulling Biden's strings for sure.
Who is he? Where is he from? What do we learn from the background investigation, talking to his friends, his family, digging into his social media?
But I thought this weekend would be all about
right now as we speak,
dementia Joe Biden, and this is one way to certainly put Joe Biden's dementia on the back burner, on the back end of the news cycle. Nobody's going to be talking about Biden's dementia now for a while.
Either one that exists in life or exists online. Are there others in this group? We are at the very, very early stages. But I think one of the things that Jonathan Wackrow could help us with is, at these events, there's the counter-assault team. They're ready to engage anybody that comes forward as a threat, especially an armed threat. But there are also the counter-sniper teams. Now, this is a very challenging environment. You've got this field, this wide-open field. You have the president at former president at one of his rallies. And there's no high ground around it, except for these low rooftop buildings. And I'm being told by sources that the shooter had climbed up onto one of these single-story rooftops and used that to shoot over the fence into the event. He wasn't inside the event. So, Wolf, that is how the information is shaping up. Now, I'm going to preface this saying, of course, this
I think that's bullshit. Some guy was peeking over the over the thing.
On right this minute.
You mean there's no security on the outside perimeter? Get the fuck out of here.
Has been, quote, neutralized.
That's bullshit.
He's been shot and killed by authorities, law enforcement on the scene. Jonathan Wackrow, explain to our viewers what a counter-assault team and a
local district attorney says suspected shooter and at least one rally attendee dead.
These are tactical assets that the Secret Service
suspected shooter at Trump rally dead.
That support the working shift. So, when you think about what we typically see with, the President of the United States, former presidents, we typically see the working shift. Those, the women and men that are the close protection around the protectee. But supporting that,
let's see what the BBC is saying. The
counter assault
British Broadcasting Company.
For all intents and purposes, that is a tactical team that works to support the protection of the
they're in
former
here
president.
Somewhere.
And their job is just as John Miller stated. They are there to suppress any immediate threat that presents itself, or they, in some instances, may draw the fire of an attack again to allow the working shift enough time to move the protectee away. The long-range threats, and this is what we think that this incident is involving, the long-range threats are mitigated through the counter-sniper team. And again, that's another tactical asset. What they're looking at is out beyond the security perimeter. They're looking for that long-range threat, that rifle range threat that could potentially present itself. And again, what we don't know is whether or not they were the ones that engaged this this shooter, or if it was a post-stand or a member of local law enforcement that worked along the perimeter, to neutralize that threat. But right now, what we're seeing is, again, a different side of the Secret Service. You're seeing how they react in these dynamic situations, and we're seeing in introducing the counter-assault team, the counter-sniper team, you're starting to see other assets that are present all the time. We just don't talk about it in the media that often, but it is really important to talk about that right now, because they play a very important role in successfully resolving the situation to move the former president, off that stage and into that limousine.
And once again, we're told that at least one spectator at this Trump rally in Pennsylvania is dead. Another was injured in this shooting at the rally for Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania.
See what local news is on, if they're on.
Of these areas that are outside the perimeter, how does the Secret Service account for that?
Well, and that's what the investigation probably will end up showing us.
This is CBS News.
Was this assailant? What sort of access did he have? As you said, the security in these kinds of events, whether they're indoors or outdoors, or really, if you think of it, there are three concentric circles. There's an outer perimeter, a middle perimeter, and the innermost perimeter, which is closest to the protectee, the former president. So it will be interesting to see what the distances are here, and whether or not something nefarious occurred that they may yet have to get to the bottom of. But to your point, the Secret Service agents train constantly for this kind of an event at the Raleigh Training Center in Beltsville, Maryland. There's a mock town, there's mock motorcades, and obviously they practice these kinds of events. And from the video, you can see how they responded, and that is the essence of what their training is. And not only
Hey, Cindy, how are you?
Close. The former president.
Welcome to the crazy country we live in.
Part of that is the equation as well, to be able to not only secure him, render what medical aid he may need.
Okay, Leo, I'll check that out.
They stayed there a little longer than you would normally think. Instead of just grabbing him and rushing off stage, they wanted to make sure that anything.
Yeah, Cindy, Trump looks like he was shot in the ear during a rally.
I want you to hold
Supposedly, one person at the event was shot and killed, as well as the shooter was apparently killed. Trump's okay with a damaged ear.
And go ahead.
Adriana, the president has issued a written statement saying, "I have been briefed on the shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. I'm grateful to hear that he's safe and doing well. I'm praying for him and his family and for all those who were at the rally as we await further information. Jill and I are grateful to the Secret Service for getting him to safety. There's no place for this kind of violence in America. We must unite as one nation to condemn it." CBS News can also report that the president will be making a statement in person or on camera later tonight. It is unclear where exactly, but he is at his beach house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and we're seeing word that the motorcade has left that house, so he may be going to a facility there in Rehoboth Beach that can be used for unexpected, unforeseen events like this, when he might have to make some kind of a statement.
Yeah, I doubt that. They're probably taking Biden to Camp David,
tonight, rare ones,
to a secure facility. They're not taking him to make a fucking speech.
And saying that he too is relieved to hear that former President Trump is safe, and former President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle saying much the same. It's not often that you get former and current presidents.
Rehoboth Beach, Delaware is like right on the edge of the Delmarva Peninsula, and like the top of the Outer Banks in North Carolina.
Attack on his bitter political rival.
So it's like a very isolated area there where Biden was. They're moving him for his own safety.
At a time of this apparent, just ongoing sort of cleaving of the country and the nastiness of its politics, Adriana.
A nasty time in politics and a horrific day in America. Thankfully, former President Trump is safe. We're being told by his campaign as well as the Secret Service. The Secret Service, of course.
The shooter looked like Dave 25.
I want to bring A.T. Smith back into this conversation. A.T. is a former Secret Service official, and we're getting to.
I'm waiting for them to show the photo on the line.
A sniper incident and that this person was outside of the perimeter. Tell us what it means when something's labeled officially as a sniper incident. What does that mean to you, and especially for agents working this on the ground?
Well, if that does turn out to be the case, then obviously it would be someone with a very long-range rifle, similar to a deer rifle or something like that, with a long-range scope. So if, in fact, someone was in a place outside of that
Cindy, it's terrible. I mean, this
been quite a distance going back to what I said a moment
this
ago.
is what happens in banana republics, I said earlier.
Concentric rings of security.
Economic collapse, people having difficulty making ends meet, and political assassinations.
To do this,
our country's
point within this
falling apart.
To try to determine what happened and why it happened, quite frankly.
And AT, how large are perimeters for these types of events? I mean, for someone to have been able to breach the perimeter, have been posted potentially outside of it, and have the precision that they may have had. All we know is
that the dead shooter right there?
President's ear. How wide is the perimeter usually?
It really depends on the venue. If there's natural barriers between, sort of the outskirts of the perimeter and
looks like somebody in camo lying down.
Natural obstructions, then that is going to
camouflage. Like
the perimeter becomes. It sounds like
digital camo
is correct. And this person was in fact neutralized. There was a counter sniper team there whose responsibility it is to be on the lookout, to constantly monitor these long-range potential threats. And if in fact that is the case, and that's what happened, and they did neutralize him, it sounds to me like
CIA. I don't know.
Assault team, counter sniper team reacted correctly, and again, if they killed this suspect, then that's part of why they're there.
It is now the top of
I don't know why, if CIA wanted to kill him, I think they would have killed him in a plane crash or something like that. Out in the open, like they did with Kennedy, is just too fucking stupid. Why would you do this in front of people? Shock value? I don't know.
As he heard and the crowd heard, shots ring out. The former president was swept away by Secret Service agents, as we're seeing right now in the video.
Oh my God,
and
Cindy, are you okay?
He ducked down. You heard those shots continue.
Jesus.
We are being told that
Cindy,
the assailant has
get
been
something to protect yourself.
Killed, and
can of mace, at least a can of mace.
That another person, an attendee
or
of
bear
this
spray
rally,
or
has
something.
Also been killed. We have reporters who were there on the ground, who've spoken to eyewitnesses, who describe, of course, a chaotic scene. One person conducting CPR on a victim who that person said was shot in the head. We're going to slow this video down so you can see it in detail. The former president, addressing crowds, raises his right hand toward his ear and drops down toward the ground. It looks like he ducks down toward the ground. You see a motorcade leaving the area. There he is. On a hot day in Butler County, Pennsylvania, where, there are folks behind him, there are folks in front of him, there's security and Secret Service that jump in hardly a second after this happened. I mean, they just appeared out of nowhere. Scott McFarland was there and saw all of this unfold. Scott, we're going to bring you in. Bring us back to that moment when you heard that noise, what you thought, and what happened in this scene.
It was uniquely jarring. Again, it had that same sound of fireworks, that same tone, that same volume, that same rapidity. A series of about 8 to 10 of those. It took just a few moments, though, for us to realize it was something much more sinister than that. There would be no place for fireworks at an event like this. I was up on a press rafter facing the former president from above, and those of us on the rafters jumped below to get beneath them, all kinds of equipment and tables falling on top of us to shield ourselves. And we could look out and see other members of the crowd, of which there were thousands here today, doing the same, and face planting into the ground, into the grass, up against the
security guard did that, Cindy?
We could see after the former president was moved off the stage, some group of law enforcement in paramilitary.
Cindy, the security guard said that?
It would be the former president's right side of the stage.
Or just some creeps driving by?
About 90 seconds after. Soon after that, we saw 2 helicopter landings. Helicopters that almost immediately lifted back up. Behind me are cars.
Did you call the police or file a report?
It seems that they have stopped the departures from the scene. This is an active investigation. No doubt an active criminal investigation.
Always something like that happens to you, ladies. Get the license plate number.
They're in their cars, air conditioning running, with the exits either closed off or slowed down.
That way, at least they can trace it back to somebody.
In Butler County, Pennsylvania. It's a populous county, but it's in a remote site. The kind of site where you can have all the open space you need for hundreds, if not thousands, of rally goers. It's only a 1-lane road and certain stretches that get you in or out of this area. It's going to be a very slow departure for those who are here. But we're only a couple hundred yards from businesses. There are some manufacturing businesses. There are some car dealerships on what is County Route 68, which is within sight of the fairgrounds. And there's a law enforcement presence there as well, Adriana.
Like you said, that area now under lockdown. Anyone who is still within the area has to stay put. A very rural part of the state, a 1-lane road, as you said. Scott, thank you for that eyewitness account. We're going to also show some video that our reporter Olivia Rinaldi, who follows President Trump, shot on her phone.
Shooter dead and rally attendee killed at Trump rally.
We're going to bring in now someone else who was there, Senate candidate David McCormick, Republican candidate from Pennsylvania. Mr. McCormick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Please describe what you saw, what transpired, and where you were when all of this happened.
Yeah, well, I was in the front row. President Trump was facing the audience, and I was to his right in the front row. And he had just announced me and invited me to come up on the stage, and I was starting up on the stage, and then he said, no, I'll call you up in a little bit. And about a minute or two later, there was a number of shots. The popping sounds is like 7 or 8 shots, and it wasn't clear exactly where they were coming from. It felt like they were coming to President Trump's left as he faced the audience. And, it was just mayhem. There was the Secret Service immediately knocked him down and jumped on top of him. And then they got him to his feet, and they were surrounding him.
President Trump's left. It came from President Trump's right, dude. What the fuck are you talking about?
Making it clear that he seemed like he was okay. I don't know if he was actually hit or not. It looked like there was a little bit of blood, but his fist came out as like a sign that he was okay. And then to my back, there was some commotion, and I looked over my shoulder. Everybody was, the moment the shots happened, everybody got down on their knees or down on their, laid down. And unfortunately, someone to my rear in the bleachers had been hit. And the people around, it looked like him, it looked like a large man. People were trying to administer first aid, and there was blood everywhere, unfortunately. And eventually, within a few minutes, the police came and carried that person out, presumably to get the kind of emergency care they needed. But it was obviously a very frightening moment. It was clear that the president was under attack, and it was clear that people were being hurt, and it wasn't clear whether it was one shooter or two shooters or whether they were done. And so you can imagine it was a crowd of 15,000 people. It seemed about 15,000 is what the law enforcement people had told us. And so you can imagine what kind of panic there was with this kind of horrible thing happening.
And David, stay with us. You know, we just played video that showed that moment where everyone was crowded down, and in this crowd of thousands, everyone is just still, hardly moving, as they react to what are the sounds of.
They're not saying yet, Cindy.
At first, then it became clear that it was gunfire. From your vantage point, how far were you from the president? You were in the first row, and could you tell if he was grazed, perhaps? I know you said you're not sure if he took a direct hit, but describe for me from how close you were what you could tell happened in terms of his potential injuries.
You know, I really couldn't tell. I did see just a little bit of blood as they were going around him, and then, as I said, I saw the fist come out. But I couldn't tell the nature of his injuries at all.
Mark violence.
In the blink of an eye, and initially, I wasn't focused just solely on the president when the shots started happening, and you know, it seemed from where I was sitting, the shots were opposite from me. But I think there's also a possibility the shots were
sounds like a fake name.
I'm not. I don't know what's been discovered thus far, but I'm not sure it was just one gunman or two gunmen. But clearly, it was. It was clearly it was an attack on and an assault on his life. And you know, the Secret Service almost acted instantaneously once the shot started, and were circled him.
Exactly. You see them encircling him. Clearly, their training kicking in. They're almost creating a perimeter around the former president, shielding him with their bodies. David, you describe, you know, one of the former President Trump in front of you, and then a person behind you who was hit. So these bullets could have been coming from any direction, or did you have any sense of where they were coming from? I know that you said that you weren't sure if they were coming from one place.
Right. Well, it wasn't clear to me. From where I was sitting, it felt like the bullets probably came from across the other side of the crowd, because if they missed the president, then they would have hit somebody behind me or, you know, someone in my part of the crowd. So I thought I heard shots coming from that direction, but you know, others thought that they heard shots coming from other directions. And, you know, I was a military person, so one of the things, it's not always easy to tell where the shots are originating from. So, and it's, you know, they weren't huge.
I got to go check the laundry. I'll be right back.
It sounded like almost a small caliber weapon. You know, in moments of chaos like this, you know, you always have to be careful you don't jump to conclusions. But I think they felt like they came from the president's left, from where I was sitting.
And David, you know, these events are loud. So for these sounds to pierce through the crowd and all of the noise, everyone reacting quickly, getting down. I mean, we've all been through lockdown training, unfortunately. Tell us a bit about the scene with the victim that you saw. Where did it appear that this person had been hit, and how severe were those injuries?
You know, it was really hard to tell. It was a lot of blood, so it wasn't clear where the bullet had struck him and how, you know, how severe the wound was. You know, he looked to be unconscious, but even that's not entirely clear to me. But it was obviously a lot of blood, so I'm assuming he was pretty severely wounded, and you know, I'm hoping and praying he's okay.
2-minute warning for Biden.
David, stand by. Thank you so much for that account. You were there. You were in the front row. I'm here with Bob Costa, who's been, as we're sitting here reporting to you, Bob is next to me on the phone, making phone calls quietly to all of his sources to find out what happened. Is the former president okay? We're being told President Biden is going to be addressing the nation in minutes. We're standing by for that. You see the shot that we have up, waiting for his arrival. Bob, what's the latest that you've been hearing?
The latest remains the suspect has been killed, one dead in the shooting at Trump's rally. We're still trying to learn more from those witnesses who were there about what exactly happened on stage in terms of a firearm being discharged. Did it hit something and then ricochet onto Trump? And then you see there's confusion about exactly what happened in terms of the injury for former President Trump. This is a major moment for President Biden. Not only the President of the United States becomes just days before the Republican National Convention, and as President Biden is facing consternation in his party over his recent debate performance in Atlanta. The president is someone who has had his differences, to say the least, with former President Trump over the course of this campaign. But we are in a fragile national moment. when there's this kind of violence at a political event for your opponent. This will be a presidential moment, if there ever was one, in the 2024 presidential campaign. We are soon to hear from the President of the United States, who was at his weekend residence, a place he loves returning to for peace and quiet, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Here's the President.
I've been thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And so I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have engaged in making sure that the people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to give it, if it's not convenient for you all. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that there's thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, and I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do, okay?
Do you think it was an assassination attempt?
I don't know enough to, I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments. Thank you.
Are you worried for safety? That was President Biden addressing the nation after former President Trump was presumptively shot at a rally in Pennsylvania. Shots rang out at this rally. We are told the potential shooter is dead. Someone in the crowd is also dead. But what really stood out to me from this address was the president called former President Trump Donald. I'm trying to get a hold of Donald. I hope he's okay. All of the kind of political vernacular has kind of faded away, and now he's talking human to human. He said Donald is with doctors. I'm trying to get a hold of him. He, of course, condemned what happened, condemned political violence. He said, quote, "It's sick."
He also said he's trying to learn more information. We do know that some kind of firearm was discharged.
All right, guys, I'm back.
And we're trying to learn about how
just threw another load of
exactly happened. We've heard from
T-shirts and underwear
just in the last few minutes
in the dryer.
Sent by an aide.
Man's got to do what a man's got to do, you know.
You're not there. But he said, quote, "I just spoke to my father on the phone, and
hey,
he is
Jeannie.
in great spirits. He will never stop fighting to save America, no matter what the radical left throws at him." Okay, we don't know about the intention of this shooter or motivation in any way at this time. That's a quote from Donald Trump Jr., former president's son. President Biden, in his brief remarks from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, a place where he likes to enjoy some peace and quiet on the weekend, not this weekend, having to speak out about violence at a political rally. He called it sick.
We have Major Garrett also on the line. Major, what do you take away from the president's remarks, and what are you hearing from your sources?
Well, first of all, everyone, I just got to Milwaukee. I got here about 5 minutes ago, right off the airplane, and I'm shocked to hear the news out of Butler, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Nancy.
The president's remarks are all the nation knows, and he's at the top of the pyramid of all the available information. I can tell you this from Milwaukee. I just got off the phone with Reince Priebus, former Republican National Committee chairman, former White House chief of staff to Donald Trump, and now currently the chairman of the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee. He said three things. One, he's been on the phone with those close to former President Trump. The former President Trump is well, does not expect to change anything about the program here in Milwaukee, will come in here, if anything, more energized, more raring to go, that is a word from Reince Priebus, about everything that is planned for the 4 days to commence tomorrow here in Milwaukee. I asked Reince Priebus, do you expect the security situation here in Milwaukee to change as a result of the events in Butler, Pennsylvania? He said, not yet. He said, but I will probably get a briefing in the not too distant future. There are a lot of other priorities ahead of that right now, but he's expecting that something might change. I can tell you this, having just gotten here to downtown Milwaukee already, the standard lengthy multi-block security perimeter is being erected as I speak. Blocks are being blocked off all around. That standard protocol for Republican or Democratic national conventions has been for many, many years. What we don't know is, starting tomorrow, will the plans that they had going into this event in any way be tightened as a result of the violence in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the very near miss on former President Trump. Reince Priebus did not have any insights into that, but what he does know and what he was able to convey to me is former president is well, expects to be here all 4 days in Milwaukee, and wants the program to go as planned. That's what I know.
We now have a doctor who was on the scene and treating people, Dr. Jim Sweetland. Dr. Sweetland, what did you see and who did you treat? What were the extent of the injuries?
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me on. I was in the stands about 30 feet away from an individual that received a head wound, a headshot. He was on the right. He was on the lower portion of the same stands. I was looking at the graph when I heard what sounded like firecrackers going off. I saw the Secret Service then swarm over Donald Trump, and somebody near the location of this individual cried out, he's down, he's hurt, he's been shot. And so, being an emergency department physician, I just went into muscle memory and went down there to assist him.
And how did you assist him, doctor? And what did he look like? What were the extent of his wounds? It sounds like this was a male. What can you describe for us?
It's a male. He appeared to be mid-30s. I believe he was Hispanic. He was wearing a Trump rally shirt. He was shot in the head. His body was twisted around and wedged between two benches that were in the stand. He was not breathing. He did not have a pulse or at all. He appeared fairly gravely ill. With the help of 3 other people, I was able to get him back up on a bench, and I administered CPR. I breathed for him, standard CPR, and also did chest compressions. There was a lot of blood that was spilled on the stands where he lay, as well as brain matter.
Doctor, did he appear to have any family with him, or did
Brain
it seem
matter.
like he was alone?
He seemed like there was 2 family members. And I continued to try to resuscitate him. 2 Pennsylvania State police officers approached and tapped me and said, "We got him." They're big guys. They lifted him off the bench like a rag doll. They thought I was family. I said, "No, I'm an emergency department physician, just trying to help." And they gathered up 2 family members and they left.
Doctor, this is Margaret Brennan in Washington. I am sorry for all that you have gone through. Thank you for sharing your account. I wonder if you can share with us any detail of what you witnessed in terms of whether you saw what the injury was caused by. Was there impact from the bullet, or as we're seeing rumors of, was there shrapnel, was there glass that sprayed that also caused injuries in the area?
Yeah, no, this was a bullet wound that was in the right temporal area above the right ear. The bone was elevated, and there was confused blood and excuse me for saying this, brain matter coming there. So it really was a bullet wound, an entry wound. Looking at him, I did not examine him beyond performing CPR. I did not see an exit wound.
Did you, doctor, have any visibility into others in the area who might have had injuries? And could you tell from the distance you were at?
This is important, ladies and gentlemen.
Was injured by,
he did not see an exit wound, meaning the bullet is in the man's head.
He had a close call.
And it should be retrieved to figure out what type of caliber it was, type of rifle. All this information is important.
I was focused entirely on that poor individual that was shot. And I once you're in that mode, you really don't pay attention to your surroundings. I did look briefly for any guns or weapons in the area where he was or around where other members of his family were. I didn't see any weapons, no guns, no knives, nothing.
Could you tell the distance at which the shot was taken? Did you see the origin of the shot?
I couldn't tell. Again, I'm not a telemetry expert, but the way the wound entered, it was, I think, from the trees or from a distance, it seemed. And sometimes it looked like an assassination. They'll shoot the individual in front of them so they then can shoot their true target. I just thought of that as I was dealing with this individual.
Mm-hmm. Doctor, since you are a medical professional, the fact that the former president was able to stand up, we heard him say, get my shoe. He had a trickle of blood, but he had his arms around others. That would, as we are hearing from these statements from his campaign, suggest that he is fine. What was it that you think took him off his feet?
I don't know because I did not witness that. When I turned around, the Secret Service were already on him, and my attention was entirely on this individual, so I could not really assess the president how he was walking off the stage. The first thing I said when
this is the guy they're talking about. He was shot over there.
Did Trump walk off the stage? And he said yes. And so to me, that indicated that.
So the guy that was shot, apparently that guy was shot first up there.
Doctor,
and then the sniper adjusted his sights and just missed Trump.
Security required to enter.
That's what it looks like to me.
It was quite tight. I mean, it was a good hour to get in. There were
1,000-yard.
An hour to get in through.
Professional snipers exist cricket day.
I happen to have artificial
certainly do.
means, that always lights up metal detectors.
No, I didn't see that cricket day.
They had them on me after I got in, and they confirmed that I had that. It was quite tight. I felt pretty secure there.
Okay.
Also, where my vantage point in the stands, I could observe. I could observe what I consider to be SWAT snipers with silencers and guns.
I think we just lost him.
The reason, Adriana, that description of the distance is so important is it gets to the security protocols. Clearly, the security perimeter was not broad and wide enough. If, as we were just hearing from our eyewitness, it took over an hour to get through those metal detectors and screening, and someone was able at a distance to take a fairly clear shot that close to a Secret Service detailee.
I just got a text from the former president's son, Donald Trump Jr. He's been on the phone with his father. He was not at the event. He says, as we've been reporting, his father is doing fine. He's doing fine. That's from Donald Trump Jr.
No, Cindy, he was not in the audience.
I understand.
He was outside of the
reporter Ed O'Keefe
the
is
facility.
standing by. I believe he's in Milwaukee. Ed, are you there? Can you hear me?
That's right, Margaret, I can. Can you hear me?
I can, and we already knew that Milwaukee was in a heightened level of preparedness security-wise because this is a large gathering. All large gatherings these days are highly scrutinized, but for the RNC, there's high security. Do you have any sense on the ground if protocols are changing or if any of the Secret Service you're seeing there
has any indication of what went wrong?
We are, during the day, in the hours before this, we observed local police and other police agencies that get sent here to assist Milwaukee local police in dealing with things like traffic control, crowd control. They were out and about, sort of reviewing the lay of the land, getting a sense of it. In the hours since then, we haven't seen a few blocks from the convention site any real change in police posture, but we know that around the time the former president's campaign rally was beginning, coincidentally, the so-called security sweep, or the thorough review of everything inside the convention perimeter, was beginning, led by the Secret Service.
They were showing a photograph earlier of somebody laying on top of a roof with camo,
potentially extended a few hours or not.
camo, shirt and pants. I don't know if that was a shooter or not.
Events that are scheduled to begin tomorrow. I know of one, for example, convention attendees from the 50 states and the territories are invited to a large outdoor music and festival area on the shores of the lake here for a big event tomorrow night. We'll have to see if that is changed in any way, given that it is an outdoor event, like the campaign event in Pennsylvania. But otherwise, hotels here are beginning to fill up. Preparations are underway. One other piece of politics that's worth conveying, Margaret, while we're waiting to see what exactly Republicans decide to do with their convention, the Biden campaign let it be known moments before the president spoke that the Biden campaign itself is moving tonight to stop all television and digital advertising across the country to acknowledge this moment, and is working to ensure that all outbound communication to voters, in essence, that's fundraising appeals and advertising, is stopped to mark this event. That is a notable pause, given that upwards of $50 million were supposed to be spent this month on that kind of advertising and other outreach.
Well, what you're saying, just to put it in context, this is already affecting the operations of a campaign 4 months out from election day, but it is also a choice, a deliberate choice being made by the Biden campaign to say this is not the moment for politics. It was very quickly that they got the president on air. Tell me what you thought about the language chosen by the president and in the White House and trying to tamp down any kind of perhaps retaliation.
Welcome to the crazy United States of America.
When the current president speaks about his predecessor and bitter political rival, I had never heard him before refer to him in that way as Donald. To Adriana's earlier observation,
hey, Carl,
I would surmise, based on years of tracking him, that that's exactly what he was trying to do, sort of tamp down the politics of this and try to emphasize the humanity. Donald, after all, is a man, is a human being, is a father, is a grandfather, is someone who's followed and adored by millions of Americans and people around the world. So the fact that he very clearly said from the beginning, I'm trying to talk to Trump tonight myself, is notable, and we'll see whether or not that conversation happens. And the president didn't rule out speaking again tonight to try to help quell concerns across the country. That response, different to the one that Trump made in the moments after this, though perhaps understandable, and we'll just have to monitor here in the coming hours how these two leaders, and perhaps former presidents, Margaret, consider speaking out or doing something to try to quell the obvious rancor and violence that we've seen today and could potentially see over the next 3.5 months as the campaign continues.
Yeah, and Adriana, apologies if you've already reported that, but our Pat Milton is saying we now know the weapon used was a rifle, that the shooter used that. And in that video we were showing earlier of the downed individual appeared to be wearing fatigues. You couldn't see the weapon. And we don't know that that's the shooter, but we believe that that video does reflect that was the eliminated threat Secret Service took down. That's new information.
And confirmation from Pat Milton as well, from 2 law enforcement sources to her. The shooter was outside of that cordoned area, as we've been discussing. It was a couple hundred yards away from former President Trump. It was on that elevated structure, shot and killed by a member of the Secret Service counter-assault team. As Margaret said, the shooter's weapon was a rifle. New information from Pat Milton.
In other words, a skilled
shooter was killed by Secret Service.
Take a shot like that at a distance with a rifle.
And to Ed's point,
The current president is talking about unity, trying to cut through the politics and talk about the humanity of the situation. The vice president has also issued a statement. She says that she's been briefed. She says, Doug and I are relieved that he is not seriously injured. We are praying for him, his family, and all those who have been injured and impacted by this senseless shooting. She continues and says that we are grateful to the United States Secret Service, first responders, local authorities for their immediate action. Violence such as this has no place in our nation. We must condemn this abhorrent act and do our part to ensure that it does not lead to more violence.
And new reporting from Nicole Skanga, a CBS News reporter, that it's still being determined if former President Trump was hit by a bullet or from debris. Some evidence he might have been cut by the glass. He's surrounded by teleprompters, which are plastic or glass, depending on the event on stage. Different elements are on stage as well. Again, from Nicole Skanga at CBS News, the suspect was on a shed. Again, that elevated platform outside the security perimeter. Usually, multiple sources tell CBS News the president or Republican nominee would have some sort of protective glass in the area, but it's unclear at this event what the extent was of the security around former President Trump.
And this on a day when, you know, the campaigns were in full swing. Just today, I just read that statement from the vice president. She had a campaign event in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, that was indoors. These events have different levels of security based on the risk. There, of course, is more risk when you are outside. There is less ability to control all the elements. Yeah. We don't know exactly what happened, but we do know that an alleged assailant has been neutralized. We believe him, if it is a man, to have been up on a roof.
CBS reporting at this point is that it is a male, and we're having communication issues ourselves on this end, and this is a breaking news environment, so stay with us in this fluidity. But I want to make sure that our control room in New York tells me that we have someone on the phone right now who was an eyewitness to events. I'd like to be able to speak to him. I'm told his name is Josh Dresling. Josh, are you there, and can you hear all of us?
Yes, I'm here, and I can hear you.
Wonderful. Josh, can you give us a little context? Why were you at the rally today?
I was just an observer there to take some pictures and see the goings-on of, you know, this whole movement in our country, and then chaos kind of broke out.
You're a journalist, or what? You saw in the heat in an hour, and you went through security and at this campaign. You're a pretty interested photographer. Tell me a little bit about why you were there and what you saw.
I'm an amateur.
Yeah, history is repeating itself. You know, Kennedy, personal headshot, Trump headshot.
I was there and bared through the heat and went through the security with, you know, there was several thousands of people there.
200 yards away is not a long distance for a professional sniper.
The center of the crowd, you know, I was a little bit too.
A professional sniper, I think, would have made that shot.
Podium about 50 yards away, standing there with, you know, shoulder to shoulder with.
I don't know what the distance was for Oswald. Anybody know?
One pop, and then the second pop, and then there was like four or five that followed that, and it sounded like it came off from my right.
Yeah, the Pope was shot. I remember that.
Trump's left, where the video that you were showing there.
I remember that, Cindy.
Injured. I kind of think that these two people were in the line of fire, and that was the shots ricocheting on the
I think 1981.
Stand kind of seating there.
Around the same time Reagan was shot.
Our eyewitness reporters were saying that they could see blood on those metal boards in the stadium area in the infrastructure. What are we talking about there, and who is that from?
I didn't personally see blood on the things, but I did see them, like paramedics and whether it was Secret Service or military or whatever, they carried two guys out of there. And actually, it's one of the videos you've been playing was a video that I had shot, but they were carrying him down the steps. And the one guy was able to exit on his own with some help from the other people. But another guy was being carried out, and he really didn't have any expression or anything. And they took them off to the side and laid them on the ground there, and were attending to them at that point. And actually, I'm seeing the video on your station right now.
Your video that you shot.
Yeah, right there.
You filmed. Okay.
Correct.
And can you tell us if you saw the image that we have up right now of the person injured, did you, with the American flag cowboy boots, were you able to see anything there? What happened and the extent of those injuries?
No, that gentleman there with the flag around him, they took him and laid him in the grass there, and they eventually loaded him into an ambulance.
Trump's saying fight, fight.
At that point, I don't have any further information as far as that.
Red work, the lip
Josh,
reader
thank you. Adriana,
confirmed that.
Or Bob, did you have any questions?
I continued to hear from sources close to former President Trump, family members like Donald Trump Jr., top House Republicans, top Senate Republicans. They are all trying to give the family some space tonight as the family directly communicates with former President Trump. But those who have spoken to Donald Trump Jr. and other family members say former President Trump is reiterating to his closest advisors and family members that he is fine. But so many people on both sides of the aisle shook by this outbreak of violence in Pennsylvania. We are still trying to learn more about what exactly happened on stage. We have seen the images, we have seen the video, but what exactly happened in terms of the trajectory of the firearm discharge, if they were bullets, if there was some other type of event that happened in the vicinity.
It looks like the sniper was sizing up the shot, and he shot the guy in the stance first at the headshot, and then he recalibrated and hit Trump.
By those closest to him, doing fine.
He might have shot like 4 shots, hitting the guy in the head, maybe a couple other people near him, and then 4 more shots hitting Trump
in Rehoboth Beach,
with 1 shot off the ear.
Statement about how he believes this is a sick moment in American political history. Former President Trump fine, the shooter killed, another person killed. But you see a security failure, as Margaret Brennan and others have been detailing with their reporting. A.T. Smith and others have been discussing, to have someone, as CBS News has confirmed, on an elevated structure not that far, just hundreds of yards, mere hundreds of yards away from a former president of the United States, one of the most arguably protected people in the country. All former presidents of the United States have lifetime security from the United States Secret Service. A breach today in Butler, Pennsylvania. You can see the alleged suspect, who is now dead, on the roof of this structure not far from the crowd. And you had eyewitnesses now pouring out of this event in Butler, Pennsylvania, expressing astonishment that some of them saw this person on the roof, and shocked that the Secret Service ultimately did take action to take out the shooter, but of course not in time before something happened with an apparent firearm. The former president, his fist in the air. That photos in this image of Trump leaving the stage with his arm in the air have circulated like wildfire among his closest supporters and allies. And it should be noted, many of Trump's supporters on social media tonight extremely angry. It's not going to reflect all of the verbatims of what we're seeing on social media from some of the Republicans around Trump. But to be clear, this is still a politically charged moment as much as it is a crime investigation and a security moment. Many people already in this country very angry at the other side, not just on a partisan red versus blue level, but we cover it all the time here at CBS News. There's a visceral nature to the emotions that pour out on the campaign trail.
And to that point, Bob Costa, I was just texting with Robert O'Brien, the former national security advisor to Donald Trump, who sent out a statement saying we've got to take the political temperature down. He and Mike Lee, the senator, issued this jointly. We've got to take the political temperature down, as evidenced by what happened in Pennsylvania today. So 2 key Republican Trump supporters calling for the rhetoric, the political violence, the threats of it to be lowered. That is in stark contrast to the head of the Trump campaign, one of the top Trump campaign officials you were reading statements from earlier. We are also looking at social media posts from...
I'm going to wrap it up here. Looks like we've seen everything that's there to see at the moment.
Failure happened, but
thanks for coming by.
Will raise further concern of someone misinterpreting
things and perhaps carrying out further political violence. Law enforcement will want to lower this temperature. And words matter right now very much.
Well, we're entering, though, a period of extreme political charge with the Republican National Convention. We just heard from Major Garrett and Ed O'Keefe on the ground in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because that begins on Monday.
We have on the phone another eyewitness from.
We'll leave it on for this eyewitness, and then I'll just end it.
Melissa Schaffert. Melissa, I understand you heard some pops. You heard what we believe to be a series of gunshots. According to the log I see, there were at least 3 shots heard. How many did you hear?
I believe we heard 4 shots. It was very confusing because the shots did not sound like they were gunshots. It sounded like they were fireworks. And we were sitting about 50 feet from this giant green tractor, which is a combine. And I look over and I saw plumes of dust, but I thought, that's not what a gunshot sounds like. And then the chaos ensued and we all got down on the ground and I could actually hear bullets whizzing by. So I think the interesting thing to note when you're looking at all of the footage that is online and President Trump is directly in front of you on the screen, all of this action was taking place to the right of the president. So we were on the ground for about a minute. We all stood up, and that's when I posted quite a lengthy video on my Instagram that
Look at this woman trying to
the exact area where
we
heard the
trying to
gunshots
clout
come from. Now, it's interesting to note
her own
that
Instagram.
the gunshots
Lame.
obviously hit a large piece of equipment that was holding a giant speaker, and that cable snapped. And when that cable snapped, some kind of fluid came out of that machine. So there was fluid spraying, and there was a loud noise and equipment falling as well. So it was very chaotic.
I'm sure it is. I'm looking here at our producers logging the video playback that we've been watching here that's on your screen right now. And it looks like there was about a 30-second or so difference of time between when they heard shots and when the Secret Service said shooters down.
Yes.
That was a very quick reaction, it sounds like, including neutralizing the shooter.
Absolutely. We did not hear any shots that would have neutralized the shooter. I actually posted the video of the gentleman getting carried out of the stands that was hurt. And I also had a still shot of further back, them doing some kind of triage on someone. I had thought it was a shooter, but now as I'm watching the news, it looks like the shooter is on top of a building. I don't know if that is true or not. But I think it's also interesting to note that the Butler Farm Show area doesn't have good cellular service. So it was, really, people did not know what was going on. And it wasn't until I drove home to Grove City, Pennsylvania, and turned on the news that I actually saw the president being hit with the bullet.
I believe, are you from Pennsylvania? Because I believe Pennsylvania is one of
Yes,
the
Cindy,
states that allows
the first person that was shot, or one of the first people shot in the stands behind Trump on one of the upper steps. They had the doctor that was treating him. He said he saw brain matter.
I don't know if I was.
The guy was shot in the right temple.
I did not hear a rifle make a sound.
And
of a bullet leaving a
like
rifle, because I
Red
thought
said,
was
it
a
probably
firecracker.
blew his head apart.
I would have bet money on it being a low caliber gun, a 22, but I could have been hearing a ricochet. I also could have been hearing that equipment being hit. So yes, I do have a concealed carry permit, and yes, I do have a good working knowledge of firearms, and I did not hear any shots after that of this shooter being taken out either. So I don't know if there are silencers involved or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your eyewitness account there. So very familiar with what guns sound like. Very interesting detail to
Yeah,
know
it makes sense. It being a
I understand
.22
seeing
caliber,
Donald Trump himself make a statement now.
Yes, former President
because
Donald
a
Trump
headshot
on
could
social
kill
media
somebody,
platform
obviously.
Truth
But then you
Social.
saw one of the
This
other
is a
guys
verbatim of what he posted moments ago.
that was
I
being
want the
that
United
walked
States
off
Secret Service
with like
and all law
holding his
enforcement for the
chest.
rapid response on the
You know, he
shooting
was
that took
shot
place
in the
Butler,
chest,
Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my
and he was able
condolences
to
the
walk
family
off. You know,
of the
maybe
person at the
it
rally who was
struck a
killed,
rib or
and
something,
also
you
to the
know, or
family of another
didn't
person
puncture a
that was
lung or
badly
nothing.
injured. This is all
So,
verbatim from
but he
Trump's
was
Truth
shot, and
Social.
then
It is incredible
that guy
that such
walked
an
off.
act
Then
can
another
take
guy
place
was
in our
carried out.
country. Nothing is known
I think the
at
guy
this
that was
time
carried
about the
out
shooter, who
was
is
not the
back
guy
at
that was
CBS
shot in the
News has
head,
confirmed that more verbatim.
because I saw no blood on that guy that was carried out.
Upper right part of my ear. He says on his Truth Social, he believes he was shot, quote, with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. God bless America, end quote. This is a statement moments ago from former President Trump on his Truth Social media account. He said nothing is known at this time about the shooter who is now dead. He believes he was shot, he says on his Truth Social, with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear, as he put it. He said he heard a whizzing sound, shots, and felt what he calls a bullet ripping through the skin. CBS News is still reporting out the exact details of what unfolded on stage in terms of the firearm, what happened on top of that building, hundreds of yards away, where the shooter was, who was ultimately killed, was seen by many eyewitnesses. We're trying to figure out what exactly happened on stage when a firearm was discharged. But that is what former President Trump, Margaret, said tonight on his Truth Social account. His version, his statement of what just happened. As we have said, his family believes he is fine. They are talking to him. He is communicating with his aides and his family members tonight. He also just posted this on Truth Social, ending with God bless America. He said much bleeding took place, whizzing sounds, shots. He felt something ripping through his skin.
Well, he is always colorful and graphic in describing things. And for him to say it was a bullet that pierced the upper part of his ear then would seem to contradict some of the initial reporting that it was perhaps shrapnel or glass that ricocheted and caused that trickle of blood.
This is his statement. This is his statement. We are still reporting out this story, and part of that report is detailing what the person who was involved in this incident, former President Donald Trump, has to say. His Truth Social statement is like us talking to an eyewitness or talking to someone at the phone who was there, but who was directly involved. It is clear former President Trump was injured in part with a firearm that was discharged from a building hundreds of yards away. He was visibly bleeding from the ear on his face as he left the stage, raised his arm in defiance.
Yeah, take care, Cindy. I'm going to be shutting this down in
You can see the blood there
a few
on
minutes.
the upper part of his ear, a droplet of blood dripping along his cheek. So clearly something struck him in that area. He says on Truth Social
Have a great
tonight,
night, Cindy. Enjoy the rest of your
he believes it was
weekend.
a bullet. We are still reporting out this story at CBS News. Part of it is his account as he sees it.
I am told that our CBS colleague from KDKA, Jennifer Barrasso, is on the line right now. She is outside the scene of the rally. Jennifer, what did you witness?
Hi there. So I have a witness right now. He had just showed up at the Trump rally just a short time before it started, and he actually tells me that he saw the shooter on the building, and his name is Benjamin Macer. Thank you so much for staying around. Just take me back. What were you doing before the shooting happened, and then what did you see and hear?
I was just standing there like everybody else, waiting for Trump, and as Trump started, I noticed two officers that were looking for something or somebody. I was looking around myself and seen a guy on top of one of the buildings go in between one building to the next, and went and told the officer that he was up there. And when I went back to my spot, I heard that people could still see the person from where they were standing, so I checked that out, and I went back to tell the officer that if he came over there, he could see them. And when I turned my back is when the shots started, and then it took me a second or two to figure out exactly what it was, and then it was just getting out of there and helping some other person out with her child, and we got out, and that was the end of that, and I went left, and that was all.
So the viewers have some perspective. Behind us, okay, is the American Glass Research Company. Okay, can you kind of describe the building behind us, the tan building right there? Can you take a look at it? And then where was the shooter exactly?
There's more buildings behind the tan building that we can see, and we were back there, and there's two or three buildings behind that, and he was on both of them. I assume both of them when he went on that small section from one to the other, and that was where I last saw him, was the end of his day.
So this man was able to basically climb to the next building, and you told law enforcement, hey, there's a guy over there.
Correct. I don't know how he got up there. I don't know any of that, but I definitely saw him up there, and officer, and that was all I know.
Did you get a good look at the shooter?
No, I don't know anything about him other than I believe he had a gray shirt on, but that's about as much as I know.
And then what happened after the shots were fired? Can you describe just the panic and just the fear I'm sure you felt?
There's definitely panic. We started out of there, and I went away a little bit and noticed there was a lady trying to get out of there with her two chairs and her little child, and I helped her. I carried the child out and her chairs for her, and we got her out, and she said that her dad was still up there and told me what he was wearing. So I went back up and found her dad and told him where he could find his daughter, and then that was it. I left and got myself out of there.
So the building where the shooter was, if you look to your left, it's that light tan building that we're seeing to the left of that brown building, correct?
Correct. Back behind the couple of trees.
And any idea just where he was positioned in terms of shooting at the former president?
He was just on the roof. That he would have been almost parallel to the stage. I couldn't see the president from where I was, but I knew where the stage was.
You were telling me that you actually told law enforcement, hey, there is a guy over there.
Correct.
And what was the response again?
He just took that information and went towards the building looking for the person, and I'm not sure. Like I said, when I turned around is when the shots were, so I don't know what happened with that. And then obviously my attention was directed somewhere else.
Anything, you said you're a local here. What do you know about this company here?
I don't know anything about American Glass Research. I assume they do glass research, but that's all I know.
And then another witness I interviewed, he just is baffled, just confused how, with all of the police here, the Secret Service, how this could have happened. And just, what are you wondering right now?
I don't have much wonder. The shooter was outside of the secured fence. He never would have went through security. So he was just far enough away, and it's an unfortunate thing that happened, and that's all.
And did you see him get shot?
No, like I said, my back was turned at that point, so I didn't see any of it.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. So there you have it. So the witness here just basically saying that he flagged law enforcement, saying that he saw this guy and that it appeared that they were looking for someone, and he then saw the guy on the roof. And just many people that I'm talking to just wondering how this could have happened.
Many people wondering exactly that very question right now. And no doubt, since this is a Secret Service investigation, we will be hearing more from them on those details as they get them. We do have a statement from the Secret Service at this time, and I want to share it with everyone who's tuning in at this hour. The Secret Service is saying today in Butler, Pennsylvania, at approximately 6:15 p.m., a suspected shooter fired multiple shots, no specific number listed here, toward the stage from an elevated position, as our eyewitnesses have been sharing with our audience, outside of the rally venue. The Secret Service personnel neutralized the shooter, who's now deceased. Secret Service quickly responded with protective measures, and former President Trump is safe. One spectator was killed, as we've been reporting, and 2 spectators were critically injured. This incident is currently under investigation, and the Secret Service has notified the FBI. So the Secret Service confirming from the federal level what our eyewitnesses have been saying in terms of the numbers of those injured, that the shooter was from an elevated position, and notably those shots were taken from outside of the rally venue. That is going to be a key part of the investigation here, why the security perimeter didn't include that area, how the shooter knew and could get to that elevated position and be able to take the shots that came this close to the 45th president of the United States.
And to that point, Margaret, we have new reporting from Nicole Skanga that there is now planning currently underway to expand the perimeter at the Republican National Convention to create a buffer zone around the event. And at 8:42 p.m. Eastern tonight, former President Trump issued a statement on Truth Social. He said, quote, "I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed." And also, and he said that he recounted, in his view, whizzing sounds, quote, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, he says, end quote, on his Truth Social account.
And Bob, you're talking about those changing security protocols. I want to go out to Milwaukee, where Major Garrett is already on the ground ahead of the Republican National Convention, a high security event. Major, I have to imagine it's getting even more protection at this hour.
Well, Margaret, let me share what's happening right now. I'm about 2 blocks away from the arena where the Republican National Convention will be held. It's just over my shoulder. You can't see it over my shoulder.
Trump's youngest son isn't married, Leo.
Already, the security perimeter
Maybe your daughter can hook up with him
around that convention site, multiple blocks in every direction. As I reported earlier in our special coverage, Ryan's
not now. You know, when she grows up.
Was not, when he spoke to me about an hour ago, aware of any changes yet in the security protocols here in Milwaukee. He said he would not be surprised if, in fact, the existing very extensive security protocols and perimeters would either be hardened or extended, but nothing had been relayed to him yet. I just want to tell you what's going on in the last half hour here. We're, like I said, about 2 blocks from the convention arena. I've seen far more police cars circling this area in the last half hour than I did in the first half hour that I arrived here, coming straight from the airport. We've also seen 2 helicopters circling this part of downtown Milwaukee. I wouldn't say that is dramatically out of the ordinary for preparations for an event of this size and security, but we can't pretend that it's not happening and not noticeable. It is noticeable and meant to be noticed. That's what's happening right here in Milwaukee. A couple of other things I can tell you, Margaret. Talking to those in the Trump inner circle about the events that will begin here tomorrow. I've talked to 2 sources within the Trump campaign who tell me that already the speeches that were prepared are being rewritten, and the rhetoric will reflect this event, and many Republicans who take the stage, not just tomorrow night, but every night in the 4 nights of this event, will talk about, from their vantage point, Democrats, the left, liberals, using very harsh language about the former president, language they will assert cannot be separated from this event in Butler, Pennsylvania. That is probably something most people would assume, but I have confirmation that those speeches are being redrafted with this event in mind. And already I've been told that the former president had soft intentions before this event in Butler, Pennsylvania, to be at this convention each and every night in some capacity or another. I've been told to expect him to be visible tomorrow night here.
No doubt, Major Garrett there, just underscoring again that they have extended the security perimeter around the Republican National Convention, which is set to get underway tomorrow in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in light of the incident that just happened. It is the top of the hour, so I want to just set the table for anyone who is tuning in. It's 9 o'clock here on the East Coast, 6 o'clock on the West Coast, and we just want to update you with a quick recap of the breaking news that we've been covering for the past few hours. We know that multiple shots were fired at a campaign rally today for Donald Trump in the key swing state of Pennsylvania. The former president of the United States and the presumptive Republican nominee for president has been injured, but Secret Service tonight says he is safe. He himself has issued statements to that effect, talking about what he has described as minor injuries to his ear. CBS has learned from law enforcement sources that the shooter was killed by a Secret Service counter-assault team. Sources say the shooter, who used a rifle, was acting from outside the security perimeter, something that Secret Service themselves confirmed. Secret Service also said the shooter was standing on an elevated platform. We know from some reporting that that was a shed. A rally attendee who was there to support Donald Trump was also killed. The former president posted about his own injuries on social media. He said he wanted to extend his condolences to the family of the person.
Lifestar helicopters around here in Connecticut.
To the family of another person that was badly injured. We actually heard from Secret Service that it was two people, or more than one person, who have been critically injured. And we will try to track their recovery as we report out this story. It is still in the early moments, and I want to get to Scott McFarland. Our
Yeah,
CBS
I think Leo, when the shooter started shooting, and all bets are off. They're
the unimaginable.
They're taking him out.
Given how high security procedures are at a rally like this.
The profound failure of enormous magnitude in securing this event. When you're on the rafters inside this rally site, you can see a car dealership. You can see office buildings in the distance. They're in your line of sight. And for everybody who came in, the thousands of people who are here today, you had to go through a magnetometer. You had to get wanted. Your bag had to be searched. They opened the zippers. They checked everything. They looked at your water bottles. Everybody who went through those magnetometers was screened. Yet something like this happened in America at an event secured by the U.S. Secret Service. To tell you from being here, being in the middle of it, gunshots don't sound like they do in the movies. They just don't, at least not these. We all conflated them initially for firecrackers. Some of us are kicking ourselves for taking so long to duck for cover, and you get a sense now from all of the shootings across America, all the tragedies, why there is a fog of war during them. It's so disorienting. It's so disabling. You lose your senses. I can't tell you how many there were. I lost count because there was a fog of war going on. A lot of us jumped beneath the nearest thing we could find, chairs. We were beneath the press rafters. Things were hitting us in the head. People were running into each other. There was this collision of humanity. But I also can tell you that among those in the crowd who were last to leave, they were in a holding pattern here for hours. They just now have been freed to go. Overhead, there are still helicopters circling. I saw ambulances arrive minutes after the former president was taken away, which gave us an indication there were more medical needs on site. We also saw a different helicopter, potentially a medevac, land twice within minutes of the former president leaving. This is an absolute horror and trauma for those who lived through it, the thousands of supporters of the former president. And I'll tell you something else. Some in the crowd turned on us. Heckled us, made gestures at us, approached the police line or the barricade they had near the media rafters. There were some, though, also, Margaret, who were heckling us earlier in the day, as often happens at these events. A couple of them came up to exchange good words when this was all over, to check on how we were doing. This is a mutual trauma for everybody involved.
No doubt, Scott, and I know you're still digesting and processing what you just lived through, and we are very glad that you are safe, along with our two other reporters, Jake Rosen and Olivia Rinaldi, and the rest of the CBS team. Bob Costa is here still on set with me, and Bob, you've been reading to us the details from the former president's statement describing his injuries. What more do we know?
Well, we know that in former President Trump's inner circle tonight, there is shock And there is also growing outrage, including from those who are potentially going to be named in the coming days to be former President Trump's running mate. A United States Senator, J.D. Vance, 39 years old, from Ohio, a Republican who is seen as one of the final candidates, a front runner to be named as Trump's running mate, said that, quote, the central premise of the Biden campaign is that former President Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. I share that, Margaret, with you because this is someone who might be named in the coming days as Trump's running mate. He's a very influential United States senator. And so we're seeing tonight on a personal level, I texted with Donald Trump Jr. They're speaking with their father. He's issuing a statement on Truth Social about how he felt bullets around him. He had blood on his face. He was whisked off stage. This comes also before the Republican National Convention. That's not going to be canceled. There's no sign tonight from our reporting in Milwaukee on the ground that that's going to stop in any way. They're going to expand the perimeter. But you're seeing so many Republicans tonight. And you also see, just again, former President Trump is fine based on our conversations with his closest advisors and families. And I want to just read a part of his statement from 8:42 tonight on Truth Social. He said, nothing is known at this time about the shooter who is now dead. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. He closes with God Bless America, and we saw him raise his hand in the air defiantly, blood on his face as he left the stage.
He is recovering from these injuries now. This was a traumatic event, no doubt, for him, but I did notice there was no call for lowering the temperature, condemning all political violence, and really trying to signal to his supporters as well not to retaliate or to have any kind of escalation.
Yes, let's blame
here.
Trump.
I just am looking at these
Well, there's a
statements.
belief in his inner circle that he's under siege.
Oh, brother.
And attacked at his rally. And so there's a lot.
It only took them a couple hours before they started blaming Trump for this.
Every single text message, literally every single one from Trump sources is outraged and shocked.
Incredible, man.
And so that is certainly the move.
We live in a banana republic.
Republican Party speaking to CBS News tonight. You did see President Biden come out to Rehoboth, Delaware, and call the moment sick.
And we want to play that actually right now, Bob. Let's listen to the president.
I've been thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And so I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have engaged in making sure that the people who, and we have more detail to come relative to other people may be injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to give it, if it's not convenient for you all.
That was a statement, as you see there, from President Biden calling for calm, saying he reached out to Donald Trump himself, hopes to reach him sometime this evening to check on his competitors' well-being. We want to bring in CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe, who follows the Biden campaign very closely, but is also on the political trail right now. He's out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Ed, what do you know at this hour?
The president remains at his home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, Margaret, but the protective press pool that tracks his movements and travels with him for incidents just like what unfolded today, or the possibility of them, has not yet been cleared for the night, which means we could hear again from the president. There could be a decision made to move him back to Washington tonight. We await word on that from those traveling with him in Delaware. But in that statement, condemning the violence, calling it sick, saying it's one of the reasons we have to unite, and the fact that he said from the beginning of that statement that he's trying to speak with Trump tonight was a signal not only to Americans but to the world that at least American political leaders are trying to get in touch and unite tonight in the aftermath of this violence. A few other things to convey here to remind people. We are in Milwaukee ahead of the Republican convention. It is set to begin on Monday with the formal nomination of Trump and his running mate, who we still don't know who that person is. It's supposed to happen Monday afternoon. There are events beginning tomorrow. This is classified already, has been for years, as a top national security event on par with inaugurations, the Super Bowl, the Democratic National Convention, and other big, large events. So there are thousands of federal, state, and local law enforcement here in this city deployed across Wisconsin. As we were flying in this afternoon, there were about a dozen or so law enforcement officers. We never quite determined for which agency, but they were flying in here as a group to deploy in assistance to the Milwaukee Police Department. In the airport, we found dozens of others from other agencies. Some appear to be from Texas, for example. There are about a dozen cities across the country who've deployed police officers, other security personnel here to help. That's standard. It's happened. There may be more in the coming days, but for now, they've been part of planning for years. We saw them riding around on bicycles earlier today, getting the lay of the land, trying to sort out their bearings.
Okay, I think we got everything we needed here, guys. I'm glad I caught that witness statement that saw the shooter on the roof and warned Secret Service. That's important to archive. We've seen most of the video. We've seen the dead shooter on the roof. The wounded people. They spoke to the doctor who worked on the gravely ill man whose head was blown apart, and presumably who passed away. And so, thanks for watching. We'll try to check back in tomorrow with something a little lighter than what we've just witnessed.
And so that is what will happen. Unclear for how long, but a sign of at least the Biden campaign.
Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
You hear Ed O'Keefe there on the street in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, ahead of the RNC getting underway.